Buy my novel, Escape from the Village, from major booksellers online. Go to escapevillage.com. Subscribe to my Substack. Go to fountainheadforum.substack.com. Thank you. Welcome to the Party Pal. This is Fountainhead Forum 137. Also, our 26th discussion about Javier Milei, and Joram Roubique has returned to talk about Milei now that he is victorious in the election, and he will be inaugurated on December 10th. How are you, Joram?
I'm doing very well. I'm very excited, very energized. Just kind of looking forward. There seems to be a lot more hope moving forward, especially after that victory that we had just recently.
Yeah. It definitely has been. We were leading at halftime, but then we weren't really leading at the end of the third quarter, but then we came back and won the game, I guess is how you could put it.
Right. Exactly. I think we were cheated, and then we came back and beat the cheaters.
Yeah. Milei got 30% in the first election, but then didn't really see any increase at all in the second election. And Massa went up to 36, but then Milei came up and basically won, almost 56, 57% of the vote in the final tally. It was really amazing how it wasn't even close. And this was the highest, the most presidential votes, or highest percentage of the vote that a presidential candidate got since, in the 40 years since the military rule, 55.71% of the vote, which is really
it's huge.
A fairly clear mandate.
14 million votes. Yeah, it was massive, like way better than we were expecting. As we were counting the votes, it's funny because during Las Paso, or the general election back in October, I witnessed so much. There was so much fraud that we had witnessed in the people stealing and tearing the ballots for Milei, that sort of thing. The way my wife was mistreated by the Kirchneristas that were at this school. Actual voter of Bregman actually defended my wife because of how rude they were being to her. The Kirchneristas, and actually before the Bregman voter left, she said, if Milei doesn't get through this time, I'm voting for him in the ballotage. And so in October, we did a lot worse, because after the election, we began to see tons of videos, tons of evidence of incorrect numbers being uploaded to the government websites, where you could look at the actual paper of the table that has the count of the numbers, and you go to the website where it's supposed to be loaded, and it's got completely different numbers. It'll be 200 votes for Massa, 0 for Milei, 0 for Bullrich, 0 for Schiaretti, when it's statistically impossible. And there were certain parts around the country where this happened. And in Buenos Aires, actually, as they were loading data, there was a power outage, and there was no backup, no generator to make sure that this doesn't happen. And then as the power came on, there were reports that there were a bunch of information was loaded in a time that was too quick during the recovery of having no power and getting power. So I think Massa and the Kirchneristas saw that their one opportunity to try to steal the election was that one opportunity, which was, I guess, politically brilliant. If you think about it, I was very disappointed, obviously, in the fraud, but I was very disappointed that Bullrich at some point didn't pull out and just back Milei, so that we could have just won in October and then moved forward, putting the people we want in. However, with the bad thing about Massa doing well in October is that was the last of the elections for the Senate, the deputies, the councilors, and the local counties and cities and things like that. So with Massa essentially winning in the Primera Vuelta in October and the general election, he got in a lot more of the leftists and the Frente de Todos, the Zurdos, than we were hoping. And then come November, when we spanked him pretty good, it was a wonderful victory. But his cheating and Bullrich not wanting to back Milei and actually wanting to kind of split the vote between Milei and Schiaretti and Massa, I think kind of hurt us. But the good thing is after that, after the October election, you started to see Milei posturing politically in a totally different way that I think is actually positive, even though at first it was like, oh man, why are you? It looks like you're trying to join with the La Casta. But when you look at the situation that we're in down here, there's not really a lot of room for bickering and fighting. I think that Juntos por el Cambio and La Libertad Avanza coming together and saying, look, we need to defeat the leftists. We need to defeat the ones that have destroyed the country and really work together. I think, I mean, that's really what put us over the edge because before this alliance, the auditors of the vote, the fiscales, the people who count the vote and watch the vote, we were vastly outnumbered with La Libertad Avanza. But for November, with the help of Juntos por el Cambio, we had more fiscales than we needed, which made it almost impossible for the Kirchneristas to do the same type of fraud that they were doing in October. So it was overall immensely positive. On the day in November, while my wife was actually counting votes, we had so many fiscales. I didn't actually count votes that day, even though I was replacing ballots and checking and making sure things were okay. Even though I did find some people sneaking in false ballots into the stacks. As the news was coming in that Sunday, I just had a bigger and bigger grin on my face in an area in which we're totally outnumbered. So back in October, as we were leaving the school after counting the votes, the leftists and the Kirchneristas were cheering because Massa had won, and we were leaving kind of dejected. This time around in November, we destroyed Massa in the election, and we didn't gloat and we didn't clap leaving. In fact, there was almost a little brouhaha at the end between the Kirchneristas and one of our people. But we left. My wife didn't even realize Milei had won because she was counting tables, and when I saw her, I was like, he won, and we got in the car and we were just totally ecstatic. It was like all this time we had worked for, all all the memes, all the getting involved in the campaign, going out and handing out volantes, ballots, and it felt like it all worked. It came together to work for the good. And during that period too of seeing an opposing political force in Juntos por el Cambio, which is kind of like the Republicans, I guess, of the United States, joining with us, not to really take over, but to be like, look, let's just get rid of the Kirchneristas and then we can fight about the rest of the stuff later, was actually a strategy that was I think it potentially saved the country.
Yeah, one thing I think, do you think some of the dirty tricks in October might have turned some of the voters who might not have liked Milei very well, but maybe that turned them against Massa?
Absolutely. I saw a lot of people, talked to a lot of people that were especially older who said that, you know what, I don't really like Milei, but I can't stand Massa. I would rather vote for the griton. I'd rather vote for the guy who yells, or I'd rather vote for the loco. I'd rather vote for the crazy guy than the thief. And so also seeing the videos of the fraud and the people just throwing ballots out of the window. I mean, I'm not joking. There's videos of towns in Argentina where the streets are full of ballots, of Milei's ballots, where they just tore open boxes and dumped things, and people seeing this online. And a lot of the youth were hugely valuable in this election, and trying to convince their parents and their grandparents, showing them memes of Massa and like who he is, what he's done, what Milei's done, and who he is. And of course, with Patricia Bullrich joining with Milei, I think it was just kind of a perfect storm of people being like, all right, we've seen the corruption. We're sick of this guy Massa, who before he decided to run, I didn't think he was that popular to begin with, but you just never know given the political corruption. The second time around, come November, definitely. And also during this whole period over the last couple of months, Massa had been running this fear campaign, where if you get on YouTube or maybe even Instagram or TikTok or something, you'd see an ad pop up, and it was like, Milei wants your children have guns in their classrooms. Milei is going to take away your grandmother's retirement. Milei, it was all this fear. And at first, it was considered somewhat effective, especially going into October, because a lot of people thought, wow, maybe this fear campaign was very effective. However, after seeing the fraud and after the decisive victory in November, it seems like that campaign that Massa was running, that was just a constant attack campaign because he had nothing to run on. I mean, if you look, 140% inflation, he has no plan. Nothing gets better with him. So what he's got to do is depict Milei as being at least worse. And a lot of people believe that it backfired. Like, people just got sick of it. They saw through it, and it didn't have the effect that he hoped it did, because he put millions into his campaign. Like, maybe I could find a chart of the money that was spent on the campaign online versus the money that was spent by Milei. And it was like, 74 million pesos versus zero. It was just, it may have been more than that now, but yeah, Massa just didn't have the connection. I think with the people, I think a lot of people just saw through him, and they're just sick and tired. They're just sick and tired of the status quo. 16 of the last 20 years, the leftists or the Kirchneristas have been ruling, and I think people wanted change.
Yeah.
They want the crazy guy over the thief, because maybe he's crazy enough to do it.
Yeah, it definitely seems like it was a perfect storm that, and of course he also had the endorsement of Mauricio Macri,
right,
which was probably a big help. So getting Bullrich behind him and getting Macri behind him, who was of course the president before Alberto Fernandez, who didn't run again, and Fernandez probably wouldn't have had any chance at all of winning if he had run it, would he?
No, not at all. What's funny is that Milei's called him the most disastrous president in the history of Argentina. Most people, I think, look at him as a total dud. I mean, the last several months, people have been posting memes, and actually there have been news reports of, like, where is Alberto Fernandez? Like, nobody's interviewing the guy. Nobody cares what he has to say. A couple of weeks ago, I saw an interview of him in the street with a reporter from, like, Crónica or one of these TV stations, and he's not surrounded by anyone. It looks like this guy is just interviewing some stranger on the street. Nobody cares about the guy. He has no entourage. And at that point, Massa had transitioned into seeming to be like the de facto president. Like, Massa was the one going everywhere. Massa was the one who seemed like he was just going to take over. Like, once they pulled it off and they rigged it, he was just going to take over for Alberto, and Alberto would ride off into I don't even know what the opposite of the sunset is. Right off into some murky swamp, because for him initially, Alberto Fernandez, I think he just wanted to be an ambassador to Spain, but because of the power of Cristina Kirchner, she kind of forced him to being the puppet president, and obviously that's not what he wanted to do. He was a horrible president, and now he's looked at as a total nobody, embarrassment.
And Cristina Kirchner, I believe, is facing some criminal charges. Is that correct?
Yeah, she was. I think it was last year. She was actually convicted. I want to say on like 12 counts, but I may be wrong. But of several different corruption charges, and she was charged before that, before the election of Alberto Fernandez, because I can't remember if there's some sort of little legalese that allows you to be prevented from going to jail if you can somehow maintain political power.
Yeah, if you're in office, but once you're out of office, and as Scott Schellers pointed out also, is apparently during her term, she has amassed tons of real estate.
Oh yeah.
She owns hotels, and when you're in an inflationary, when you're in a place that's going through tons and tons of inflation, real estate is probably the best thing you can hold.
Sure. You buy up everything while everybody's
land
selling.
Always has value, because everybody else is losing money or they can't pay their mortgages or whatever. Yeah.
Right. So she goes in and she buys from people who are struggling and needing to get rid of land in order to survive. Even how she and Nestor started with some weird little scheme where they would go in and remodel property for people, and then when those people couldn't afford to do it, they would pretty much buy it from under them. It's kind of how they made their their fortune. And then these hotels that they own, mostly in the southern part of the country, because I think she's from Jujuy. I think Jujuй's down there. I might be getting it wrong. She has like these huge luxury hotels that have almost nobody there. Yeah. Like you could like see pictures online, and there's like hardly ever cars. There's hardly ever anybody staying there, but everybody knows, or I shouldn't say knows, but presumes that it's all for money laundering. Like she's got to have all these things set up all over in order to be able to prove the Gucci and Versace and the iPhone 20, 23, whatever the newest one is, because she's always got it. Well, same thing with Massa. There was a picture of Massa while he was voting. Someone had taken where his shirt had lifted up on his pants, and it was like Dolce & Gabbana jeans, and the jeans are like $1,000 jeans, and his shirt I think was like a $700 or $800 shirt. Like the average person here, they're struggling to buy like bread and like a piece of meat for the week. Yet you have this guy who the clothes he wears is worth more than half of somebody's house. It's just absurd.
And when you're that just reflects such an arrogance too. I mean, if you're doing that in a country where everybody's got nothing, I mean, you see a lot of these politicians in third world countries where, they dress down as much as they can. They still dress a little better than the public, but they don't go too far with it. If everybody in the audience has a $10 pair of pants, they might wear a $15 pair of pants, but they don't just go where it's like that. Yeah, they really do try to be careful, because you flaunt it, you really can alienate people fast.
Yeah, well, the more disconnected you are from reality, or at least disconnected from the plebes underneath you, the less you care. But then you have times like this where I think we're entering this paradigm shift, or this pendulum swing. I don't know what you want to call it. Where I think, as much as I hate the state and I don't like political solutions, however, I think we're moving into an era in which people, for good or bad, are just more attracted to, or more drawn to, sincerity. You look at maybe Trump, as bad as he is, at least there's like some form of like, he's not like Hillary, at least he might be wrong on everything, but at least he believes he believes what he's saying. Whereas Hillary, you don't know if she believes anything she's saying. Whereas Milei is so unabashedly libertarian. He's so rowdy. He's so raucous. But I will say this: now that he's president, he's taken on this presidential demeanor. That is, I think, very calming for the average Argentina that may have been scared to say, okay, so when this guy goes to sit down at the table at the UN, or if he goes to visit people in the United States, how's he going to behave? I think now the way he's conducting himself is like, okay, this guy, he's taking this seriously. He's not just some local. Like now he means business, and all the screaming and the name calling, that was what helped him get here. And now it's all right, let's start putting things in the plan that's going to open up the economy, help the worker, help the individual, and recover Argentina.
Yeah. What can you tell us about some of the people that Milei is going to have in his cabinet? I mean, we got Victoria Villarruel, Diana Mondino, Patricia Bullrich is going to be there. I believe there's also Emilio Ocampo.
No, Ocampo actually backed out.
Oh, Ocampo did? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, he was like the dollarization guru, I guess you could say. But he actually backed out because, at least from what I'm reading, Milei has appointed Luis Caputo, I think is his name, as the head of the economy. So the Ministro de Economía, who was the former head of the central bank under Macri. So I think Ocampo, who's wanting to dollarize pretty quickly, saw that this guy being put in, who is not a big fan of dollarization, was wanting to kind of delay the dollarization. I think Ocampo was wanting to move kind of quickly. So Ocampo backed out and withdrew his nomination for chairman of the central bank. Yeah.
What is the plan? Because Milei's been traveling to New York and DC to meet with these people. I know that is it the Lilacs or the Lilecs they call them. I'm hearing about these things, and some of the things that have to be fixed before they do dollarize.
Oh, the Lelix.
Yeah.
Yeah, that thing's a little more. It's a little more complicated, but what I can do is there's this explanation that actually my friend Scott wrote that I
Yes,
felt
Scott.
was
Yeah, Scott. Yeah, Scott was a great guest. He was.
he
Yeah.
actually broke it down
Oh
really
yeah.
well.
Yeah. Scott was a great guest. I wish I'd had him do more than just a debate analysis, but yeah, yeah. I've had so many great guests on here though, and Joram. The other thing too is everybody loves talking about this.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh yeah.
especially if you're like
It's exciting. People want to
yeah,
talk about winners.
yeah, I mean it's something that's you just you don't expect it. You hope for it, but you don't expect it.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
when you see
We can get back to
the
that stuff that
success.
Scott has. We can get back to that later if you. Well, you can look it up while we talk. But yeah. Yeah.
I'll be looking for it.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. Deanna Mondino. What she's going to be doing something. I believe she's going to be the
Canciller. I don't know how that. I don't remember how that translates in English, but Canciller. I think she's kind of like the foreign relations.
Something like the Secretary of State in America. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and to me, she's fantastic. She's very, very, very good on philosophy, libertarianism. Her English is superb.
Yes.
She's the kind of person that you want to talk on your behalf because she is so sharp. And she was actually one of as he was naming the people like really close to him during the whole development of his team.
Yes.
I was like, okay, who is this lady? And as I began to find out more about her, she actually lives in the same city or partido that I'm in. She's fantastic. And of course, Villarreal, his vice president. I don't know if you saw, but I met her actually.
Yeah, I saw that. That was awesome.
A few weeks ago on accident, we went out to get pizza, and she was there in our town. And
these people are actually fairly accessible. It seems. I mean, they're more accessible than a lot of governors in America. I mean, which I think is wild. Oh, by the way, Deanna Mondino, you are invited. You're definitely invited. I'd love to have you on here. I know it's a long shot, but I want to put it out now. But anyway, Vita Real. Does she speak English too or not?
I asked her when we were at the pizza place. We were talking and stuff. His friend of my wife was like, "That's Vita Real." I was like, "No," and I looked at her. I was like, "Oh my god, that's her." And so my wife wanted to go there and talk to her, which I found was embarrassing because I didn't want to bother her because she was eating. But she was very sweet. She was with two other people, one who got elected and one who didn't. And she was the one that was like, "Yeah, let's take a selfie." And so while we were talking, I asked her, I said, "Do you speak English?" And she told me in Spanish, "Yes, I do, but I don't like to speak it in front of people because I sound like a monkey." So I think she understands it and speaks it, but like me, how I am, I don't really like to speak Spanish publicly because I feel like I sound like an idiot.
Well, sometimes,
but I think that's how Milei is too.
With the new language is hearing the new language. At least that's the way it's Spanish. I mean, I can read it, but hearing it is a lot harder.
Yeah. Although for me, I think I can understand it better than I can speak it. But for her, I think Milei's probably like that. I think Milei, he's read so much that he probably understands, but you're not going to find him speaking English in public anywhere.
Yeah, I wonder. The other thing too, Joram. I looked looking up his books. He's got none of his books are in English. I mean, that's going to be a job for somebody pretty soon to translate those books into English. And the other thing too is, speaking. Obviously, maybe not. You can't do it while he's president, but after 8 years of the presidency, he is going to be an in-demand speaker. I mean, he'll be able to probably be able to get $100,000 a speech, especially if he comes to speak English. I mean, all these libertarian conferences and stuff are going to want him. I mean,
yeah, well, it's kind of how he financed his campaign, was giving speeches and charging big money per seats. So it's like that'll expand even bigger. And two, if he can show, I mean, he's already said, look, for the next 2 years, we're going to have inflation. Like he's already kind of telling people, look, things are going to get rough before they get better. We're not promising like plans and all this, rainbows and sunshine. We're going to do things to help improve for the time being, but we still got 2 years of inflation. After this 2 years, I would say probably around the third year when things really start to kind of pick up, hopefully even before then, and the proof will be in the pudding, I think that's when you're going to start to see a huge demand for what did this guy write? What is he doing? And I'm actually talking, I have a friend of mine who's a Chinese objectivist who lives in, I don't want to get the name wrong, but he lives in China. He uses a VPN to communicate. But he's actually, there's actually a group of Austrian economists in China, and he's friends with a couple who are translators, and he's working to get a couple of Milei's books translated into Chinese. So
good.
Yeah, so even you have libertarians in China, of course, very few and far between, working to get his stuff translated and are interested in what's going on here with Milei. So definitely there's going to be a huge demand for his books moving forward, if not already.
Yeah, that would be. I went to the Rebel Capitalist event in Houston, and George Gammon has that, and Ron Paul was speaking. I kind of whispered to George, said, "Did you have this in Houston just so you could get Ron Paul?" And he said, "Yeah." So because it would be easy to get Ron Paul to come to Houston because he lives within an hour. But yeah, so and Milei's younger. He's definitely got a lot of things going for him there. Mondino, the finance. Is there anybody? Who else should we need to? We talked about Vija Ruel. We talked about Mondino.
Well, somebody who was just announced today officially from La Libertad Avanza is that Patricia Bullrich will be the Ministra de Seguridad. So that was been talked about for the last couple of weeks. A reporter leaked it last week, but La Libertad Avanza didn't officially say anything. But that is official today. I'm torn on Bullrich. I feel like I have to be careful because people here, they have such a high opinion of Bullrich for some strange reason. And I think it's probably because Kirchnerismo was so horrible that when she came in with Macri, she cracked down on crime. And a lot of Argentinians have remembered that and look at her favorably. But overall, she's a total animal of the La Casta. She's been in politics her entire life. She's a former, Peronista, apparently a former Montanera, this sort of thing.
Yeah, she was part of the Montaneras. That could be a good thing, though, if you have a former terrorist.
Maybe so.
Now signed with arresting the terrorists because she's going to know how they think. It's like like the former hackers who become the best security pros.
Right. That's a good way to look at it. I haven't thought about it like that before. But.
During the debates, though, it was hard to tell if I hated her more than Massa. Or
Bregman.
She was so unlikable.
She was horrible. Was like more likable than Bullrich, I thought, even though she's wrong about most everything. But Bullrich, it seems like she's willing to fall in line. I'm guessing that this is the position that everybody thought she would get because of her endorsement of Milei, which definitely did help with the election result. But I'm also very I'm thinking too, since this is the specialty of Vija Ruel, the vice president, it's not like Bullrich is going to be all by herself, all alone. I think it's going to be a thing where Milei says, look, Vija Ruel is the vice president. This is her specialty. Y'all figure stuff out together. Because a lot of times when people have asked Milei about security in interviews, he'll answer, but he'll say, ultimately, I'm going to defer this responsibility to Vija Ruel. So even though Bullrich, I was thinking there's got to be somebody better than Bullrich. I think she's going to kind of be working with Vija Ruel, who I have actually like Vija Ruel a lot. And I think they'll be working together. It won't be like, Juntos por Cambio just took over Seguridad. Nah, it's going to be somebody from Juntos por Cambio is in there under the guidance of La Libertad Avanza.
Yes, Juntos por Cambio was Bullrich's coalition, and Union for the Homeland was Massa's coalition, or that was also Union por Patria, I believe, or is that?
Sí, Unión por la Patria, which Milei calls Unión por la Plata.
Yeah.
So,
and I don't know. Bregman, of course, was the outright communist, but it was funny because she looked like she was almost starting to have a crush on Milei during the debates, which I was kind of, and other people were noticing that too. And then,
there was a lot of memes coming out with like a fan fiction between the two.
And And the one person, the only person I kind of liked Schiaretti in those debates. He seemed like a guy that Milei could work with. Is he going to be doing anything, or is he just going to kind of go back and be governor of Cordoba again?
I don't know, because he never officially came out and endorsed Milei. However, there have been a couple of big, or at least one big member of his team who have come over to join Milei. And I think it was for the Interior, or let's see, I actually have the list right here. Infrastructura, maybe is what it is. But
I suppose Milei will probably try to decentralize some things, won't he? I mean, he'll say to these governors in these provinces and say, okay, Buenos Aires isn't going to tell you what to do anymore. You go do what you think is best for your province. I mean,
yeah, essentially. I mean, if you look at Cordoba, for example, he got like 73 or 74% of the vote, which is just nuts. I mean, he got a ton. They're very anti-Kirchnerista in Cordoba. So Cordoba is kind of like, there's a joke around here where people refer to as Cordoba as La República de Cordoba, because they're so very independent. There's kind of a rivalry between Buenos Aires and Cordoba, is like which one's the better one with the better culture, that sort of thing. But yeah, I think with Schiaretti not really coming out and endorsing him, he's posturing himself in a way in which I think he's going to try to. For example, he was on the radio this week with a guy named, his last name is Fantino, and he basically told him, he's like, look, the project of public works is done. We're canceling. There's not going to be any more road building, bridge building, all this sort of thing. And the host was like, what do you mean, Javier? There's going to be people without jobs. There's going to be roads not being built. And Milei basically said, no hay plata. There's no money. I'm not going to just print money to fund these things. And so the guy was like, well, what do people do? And he said, well, the governors and the mayors are going to have to get together and figure out how to fix their own problems. So yeah, in that regard, he's going to take, these things that the federal government does, like, the public works, where they're constantly building something, they're constantly funding these different provinces in these different areas, and saying like, look, we don't have the money. You're going to have to figure it out on your own. You're going to have to pull from your own resources or find private funding and learn how to get your act together. And it's not just that. I mean, if you look at all the different ministries that he wants to get rid of, I mean, essentially that's a huge part of the decentralization, where there's not so many, like the ministry of like culture and sports and things like that. Why do you just get rid of that? And so one of the things they were attacking him on before he won was that he was going to privatize all the football clubs, all the soccer teams. And that was one of the last things Massa was trying to run before the election. That was scaring a lot of people. But as far as Milei is concerned, just like when it comes to the relations with China or Russia, the federal government's not going to have any kind of friendly relation. But he's going to allow entrepreneurs to do what they want. If they want to trade with China independently, then that's up to them. So I think his role, and we're seeing it now, which is fantastic. He's already filed paperwork to privatize YPF, which is like the big, I guess you could say, Exxon of Argentina. They are the state gas station. Yeah, exactly. The big oil company that's owned by the state. He wants to privatize that. He's already announced, this is a couple of weeks ago, but it was like in 21 days, the Department of Women and Gender Studies, I don't remember it's like the Ministro de Mujeres. Like we're on a countdown. I think it was like 8 or 10 more days till they shut that down. It's going to be interesting seeing how the decentralization process, the shrinking of the state, and also the little things he's able to do before he's doing the big things like closing the central bank. The little things, how he's going to help the regular person in their paychecks. Because, for example, here there's basically a luxury tax called IVA. I think it's IVA, where if you buy a airplane ticket, the government charges you 20% tax. If you buy if you want to stay in a hotel room, you have to pay a 20% tax to the government.
Oh,
To the
geez.
point where,
That's all over the
20%.
country.
Yeah.
You'll pay a 20% hotel tax in some places like New York City. Believe it or
Oh,
not.
wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
just in some of the cities, but yes.
Well, here it's like all over the place.
But this is nationwide, yeah, which is crazy.
Yeah, and it's not just like, for example, if you buy something, it might be like over a certain smaller amount, but if you buy something here, there's something called Mercado Libre, which is like the Amazon of Argentina. It's really great. But when you buy something on there, they'll tell you, okay, here's the IVA that's connected. It's like 20 or 21%. And it's like, if you want to buy a lawnmower, you have to add on a whole 20% extra. So if you just think, if you want to stay at a hotel or if you want to take a trip, almost a quarter of what you're paying is going to the government. So I'm hoping that things like that, he'll kind of phase out pretty soon so that the people can see immediately like, whoa, this is a big difference. 20% on certain things. If I want to stay in a hotel or take a trip to see my parents or go on vacation, I can actually afford it and maybe bring my family with me, or and two, like the different subsidies that he's cutting out. They've tried to trash him on. I mean, he's really going to cut back. In fact, he's established or changed the Department of the Modernization. There's a Department of Modernization in the government, the federal government. He's basically appointed someone who is essentially going to be in charge of converting the Department of Modernization into the Department of Shrinking Government. So the modernization for us, when I say us, I mean the libertarians in power, means getting rid of the state, not making it bigger and trying to figure out how they can help. So you think of like a modern, and I don't know, I love the idea of like a modernized world is one in which we have less state intervention in our lives.
Yeah. It's interesting here too. Milei got 74% of the vote in Cordoba, and it's also the second most populated province. Milei got, his margin was over 1 million just in that province. Wow, that's So, and that was, and even though Schiaretti did endorse him, he certainly was very popular there.
And I think Schiaretti was probably trying to play it safe with Massa, because Massa, just the whole mafia, to be honest, because when you look into Massa, you start to see like, man, this guy, it's an open secret that this guy is like a drug trafficker. And people that have tried to come out and expose it have been murdered. So it's kind of like one of those things where you just kind of like have to be careful.
He just looks, he just has that sleazy vibe of a used car salesman and a child molester.
He's got a sinister look in his eyes all the time.
And
during the debates, I thought, especially the last debate, I thought Milei could have done better. However, based on like some polling and some questionnaires and news reports, a lot of older people after the last debate felt that Milei presented himself very respectfully and that Massa was coming across as an a-hole. So even Massa was starting to wear on people. And I don't know if he really, without the fraud, I don't know if he really had a chance in any of the
and he looks so stiff, he just looks so stiff and almost like a statue. You notice how Milei a lot of times during the debates when other people are talking, he's kind of laughing or smiling.
Right.
It's really, there's definitely something about there. That's one thing. Do you think that something could, do you think they might try something with Milei, like try to take him out or something like that? That's one thing that I think we have to legitimately be concerned with here.
Yeah, it's hard to say if I think they will. I think they want to, because right now that's actually one of the things over the last week that I'm starting to see pop up more and more in news articles, things like Twitter. I've been added to a couple of groups on Telegram and Twitter of Argentinian, libertarians here, liberales, who are planning to go to the inauguration to try to outnumber and counter the socialist leftist surlos that want to go and just start mess. Because the problem is that most of the zurdos that manifest in the streets and create quilombos for everybody, keeping them from going to work or getting to the hospital or what have you.
Yeah.
It's these people that are all congregated essentially in Cava, in downtown Buenos Aires. And there's lots of reports of several of these agitators creating groups, sending messages. There's so many millions of dollars swirling around the Kirchneristas and stuff where they can pay people 30, 40,000 pesos to go show up at a rally, and it's nothing for them.
Yeah, and they don't have any real jobs, probably.
Oh, well, that is their job. For example, there's this guy, his last name is Belly Boni. He represents Polo Obrero, but all he is a quilombo starter. He just starts a mess. That's all he does. He goes around complaining about capitalism and how the workers need this and the workers need that. And it's like he has no job. All he is an agitator. He's a professional agitator who rallies the troops of the people. I mean, the other day, it was like 2 or 3 days ago, I was watching a news broadcast where they were at one of these protests of Milei that have already started. And they're asking these people, okay, well, why are you here, ma'am? And she's like, I don't really know. And then so that he asked the other lady, I don't really know. A lot of these people are just paid to be there to make it look like they have all these numbers. Yeah. But if shit really hits the fan, sorry for cursing.
That's fine.
These people that are paid to be there and just, if they're getting 30,000, that's food for their family. As soon as things get rough, they're leaving. They're not going to be throwing any rocks and things like this. Yeah. However, there is definitely a fear that there are these kind of Antifa types, maybe the second generation of the Montaneras or whatever you want to call them, that are preparing to just start crap. And really, I think it's going to be to try to provoke Milei into acting in a way that they can say, see, he is a dictator. See, he's just like Videla. See. So where if they start throwing Molotovs and then the military has to come in, then they can be like, look. They can cry out in pain as they, throw Molotovs through your window. Exactly. But hopefully right now, I'm hoping that will be kind of like one of those things where, well, if Obama wins, there's going to be riots in the streets, or if Trump wins, there's going to be riots in the streets, and it never really quite happens. Yeah. I'm hoping that's kind of how it is here, that most people, I mean, when you look at, he got 56% of the vote, almost 57. I think most people are tired of these people, these agitators, these social agitators. So we'll see. The power they have is in Buenos Aires, which is obviously where the inauguration is going to be. So hopefully there won't be some clash. If people like Trump and Elon Musk and other huge leaders and popular people from around the world have been invited and are going to show up, the security is going to have to be elite.
Oh yeah. Well, if Trump shows up, there'll probably be an American security detail there. Period.
Right.
And maybe that'll be part of it. He might just say, "Hey, since your president's coming here, can you bring us a security detail?" And that might end up, be an American security detail as well.
Right. And I was thinking that too. And Bolsonaro is coming. There's, and what I'm saying is like
Lula, I guess, are coming.
No, I don't. Well, Lula. I would be surprised if Lula's coming.
Well, I mean, Argentina can't ignore Brazil. I mean, they're a neighbor. I mean, they've got, Milei's going to have to deal with whoever's president of Brazil. I figure, he can't just say, "Oh, we're not going to deal with Brazil at all."
Well, that's what he said, though. He's like, he has no room for Lula, who he's called a communist. It's one of those things where people can trade with Brazil, but as far as the Brazilian government, he's going to do whatever he can to make it as difficult for him as possible.
Yeah. Bukele apparently may be showing up as well.
I think so too. Yeah.
I saw some of the people who congratulated him. We got, heard talks about Viktor Orban in Hungary or Kurt Wilders, and
that's right.
Even the president of Armenia sent him congratulatory notes. Which
I didn't see that.
Well, I thought that was so it was kind of interesting to see how, and I don't know. Did you see the tweet from Gustavo Petro in Colombia?
No, I didn't.
Well, he expressed some very sadness that Argentina is going to go right wing, and then Bukele and El Salvador responded and said in Spanish, of course, but it's like, now say it without crying.
Without crying. Yeah, I did see that. That was great.
my attitude after COVID, I don't want to try to convert these socialists. I just want to humiliate and make them cry and frustrate them so that their spirits are just completely and totally broken because they cannot be redeemed.
No, they are.
They can't. It's
they don't relent. It's like Milei said. You have these people who their whole means of existence is living off of someone else. So the only thing they're going to work tirelessly to do is not to actually have a real job. It's to live off of you. So if we can make these people as the outcasts of society, in which they have no choice but to work for somebody and but to go do something productive, we should do it. We should scold them and mock them into being and shame them into being productive members of society. And it's funny because here, one of the big memes going around has been mugs that say "lágrimas de zurdos," tears of leftists. So that's another thing that's been going around, making a lot of people mad. In fact, I posted a meme the other day of a video of the ocean, and I said this is the sea of tears of the leftists on December 10th when Milei assumes office. And man, the comments I was getting from the leftists that were just so offended because they hate this idea, because it's true. I mean, they really are sad. They really are just totally, they didn't see this coming.
Joram, I can probably forgive some of the teenagers of the 20-somethings because I think they're just naive. Mm-hmm. But I absolutely positively cannot forgive any of these academics. The college professors are the worst, and the news media isn't much better. One thing we wanted to go over. Can you tell us a little bit about how the struggle? We've talked about the ballots. Now, this is an interesting system because apparently, when you show up, you have one ballot for Massa, one ballot for Milei, and they're different colors, and you pick your ballot, and then that's how you vote, right?
Yeah, it was a whole lot easier this time around because it was just Massa and Milei. But usually, I think I showed you in my last one, one ballot is 7 sections, all the way from the president all the way down to the mayor. This time, I think it started under Sarmiento. Well, it was over 100 years ago, that for the poor, the people who couldn't read, each party had to have a number so that if somebody went in there not knowing how to read, they could see the color and be like, okay, that's the guy I'm voting for. So each group, La Libertad Avanza is purple, Unión por la Plata is blue, Juntos por el Cambio is yellow, and so on and so forth. When you go to vote in a normal one, when you have, especially in a Las Paso, what is it called? The primaries. I mean, there's ballots of just about every freaking party, because here there's all kinds of different parties, Yeah. And there's tables full and full. This time it was just Massa and Milei. So it was a whole lot easier.
Yeah.
You didn't have to worry about tearing a ballot and then somebody being like, oh, you tore it too much. That ballot doesn't count, that sort of thing. It was a whole lot more simple.
Does that mean you have to vote a straight ticket in the first election, or because
No, actually, that's what's weird is so you have these ballots that are a mile long, and they're sectioned off in 7 parts, all the way from president to mayor. But let's say you like the mayor, like the mayor of your town, but you don't like Massa. Well, you can cut the ballot and use the mayor part, and then you can cut the ballot from another party and use the president part, and therefore vote for 2 separate parties for 2 separate cargos, or 2 separate positions. Yeah. So you can, La Libertad Avanza was baleta completa, just vote for everybody on our thing, don't cut anything. But there were a lot of people who would cut off for president or cut off for mayor and vote for opposite parties.
Yeah. Well, it's just interesting because, in America, you might, well, this is a little primitive, but you'd walk in and you'd have one piece of paper and you might have Massa and Milei's name on it, and you just put an X to whichever one you want, and then it goes in and they count it. But one thing that was very interesting too was, when I first heard on the internet, somebody announced, hey, Milei won. And my first reaction was, this seems rather early. Let's give this maybe 3 or 6 hours before we declare him a win. but apparently they do get things out pretty fast down. They do get it done pretty quickly down there.
Yeah, it's very fast. In fact, it was around the voting starts at 8 o'clock in the morning and ends at 5 o'clock sharp.
Yeah.
Once 5 o'clock rolls around, there's very few voters hanging around. So basically, it's just the people who are like, you have the president of the table, and then her or his two assistants, and then you have the fiscales generales, which are like the auditors, the general auditors, and they all go into separate rooms. I mean, almost immediately, probably within 10, 15 minutes after voting is over, and then they start opening the urnas, the cardboard boxes that have all the votes, and they start counting. And so within from let's just say 5:30 to about 7:30, 8 o'clock, there's just about everything's been counted. So when you think of it being 8 o'clock here and it being 5 o'clock your time, I mean, by 5 o'clock your time, you were pretty much getting the news, whereas us here, it was like 8 o'clock, and it was before that, because on Twitter it was like 6:37 while my wife and the other fiscales were counting, and I'm going through Twitter and I'm looking at all the other counts from all over the country of all these different tables where Milei was just destroying. He was getting 100 and something votes to Massa 60 something votes, and even though where I live, it's heavily dominated by Kirchneristas, and he didn't win, here he got enough votes to where it counted, because here there's no, there's the electoral college. So it's a definitely different process. A lot of, especially the libertarians here, want to see it go to something more simple, like you were saying, where you have a picture of Massa on one side with a square under it, and a picture of Milei under it with a square under it, and then you X whichever one you want. In fact, that's how they do it in the prisons. And a lot of libertarians have complained that the people in prison have a better voting structure than we do, one that's a whole lot less easy to defraud.
Well, you don't necessarily need to put photographs on. I've never seen a photograph on a ballot anywhere, but
here that's pretty common.
But that is interesting. Maybe I don't know if that makes a difference or not. Maybe just because if you've had a really bad photo, that might make a difference too. I mean,
Well, I think so, because like the local mayor here, I mean, I don't want to talk bad about that guy, but he's not the most photogenic person. And so in his in his picture for ballot, he joked that he looked like Mr. Burns.
Yeah, I've told politicians, since I know actors, go find a photographer who shoots actors, does headshots for actors, because the key to getting a good headshot is you take about 100 photos, and then you pick out the best, and then you pick out the best headshot from those. And so.
No, but here it's different. Everybody, the rules here are so strange, man. Because it was before June 24th, everybody had to go. I don't remember if it was La Plata, but it was like to the Electoral Commission area, something like that. And you have to go dressed in a suit. You're not allowed to smile. You're supposed to only look directly at the camera with a blank look on your face. No smile, no frown, no nothing. But if you look at Milei's picture, he's kind of like looks a little bit angry. So I guess they let him slide. But generally speaking, there's like this very strange, I don't know, like, why can't you smile in the picture for the ballot? They tell you deliberately not to smile. You have to come in a suit or at least dressed. They do your makeup there. If you're a woman, they do your hair there. It's like this big ordeal, big production that I guess the state manages in order to have a picture to be on the ballot. Like, you can't submit your own picture and be like, I like this picture, put this on the ballot. No, that's not how it works. Everybody's got to go line up, take their own pictures, so that nobody can say, hey, his picture's better than mine. You can be like, no, it was all taken by the same camera with the same lighting at the same place. So, and I'm sure it's, in different spots all over the country, because, somebody in Tierra del Fuego is not going to come up to Buenos Aires to do that. But there are these specific spots that you have to go in order to have those goofy pictures taken.
Yeah, sounds very interesting. And also, apparently I know some people went to consulates and voted, and you talked about voting in prison, but does everybody pretty much vote on election day, or is there absentee voting or early voting or anything like that?
I don't think so. I mean, there might be, maybe, but it doesn't seem like it, because even older people, you're allowed to I think you're allowed to vote on an older person's behalf if they're with you. Like
Yeah.
if you bring like an old person who's like really can't
Yeah.
walk, that
Yeah.
sort of thing. But I don't think there's anything like that.
Yeah.
In fact, it was on the day of the election that
Yeah.
places like Spain and Australia, the foreign ballots were coming in because they were voting pretty much on the same day as we were. So we were
They were
getting kind
ahead.
of, yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
we were starting to see like, okay, Milei's doing really good in Spain, doing really good here, really good here. Not quite
He
as
did
good in
really
New
well in
Zealand, but
Australia and New Zealand, from what I've heard. Yeah. So yeah,
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 yeah, especially Australia.
and Australia's like 15 hours ahead, yeah, or something like that.
Yeah,
I
so
mean,
we were kind of getting little glimpses of like,
mhm.
okay, overseas, and you have to understand too, like people overseas. I mean, imagine if they think if our country comes back to something where we can live there, we can move back, So a lot of
Yeah,
these people are voting with hope. And so
yeah.
that was a good indicator for me, even though,
I would imagine people who've left Venice, who've left Argentina, would tend to be more libertarian just for that reason alone. Yeah, but also, another thing too is, are the precincts pretty? I mean, you go vote, and are they pretty big precincts? Because I'm asking, my mother. Everybody in America talks about voter ID now, and I
Mhm.
can remember my mother being a poll worker forever, and those ladies never asked for ID because they knew who everybody was. Is it like that,
Right.
or do you have these polling places where nobody knows who everybody is, and so you
No, here the way it's set up here is you have what's called I think it's called a padrón. Yeah, it's basically a big list of everybody that's eligible to vote, and you're eligible to vote from 16 all the way until you die. And it's mandatory. So the vote here is mandatory. So there's a list full of everybody that's supposed to go vote. So when you go vote, you have to show your ID. You give the person at the table your ID.
yeah
Of course, you have to go to the right table that's
yeah
associated with your name, because the different tables would be like
yeah
A to C for the last name, and then D to blah blah blah. So once you go there, you show them your ID, and then they find you in the list, the padrón, which is this big, huge, thick book that every table has for all of the different voters. And they find you, and then you sign the book, I think, after you
yeah.
vote.
Okay, yeah.
So yeah, there's actually, like, you have to show your ID, then you go vote, and you come back, and then you sign, and then they give you like a receipt, like proof
Mhm.
that you voted,
Yeah.
I guess, in case the state says, hey, you didn't vote. Because really, even though it's
Oh
mandatory,
yeah,
there's a lot of people that don't vote, and they don't really, I mean, they might send it a
yeah,
fine, but if nobody pays the
yeah,
fine, it's not like anything happened.
yeah.
But yeah,
And
you
I
definitely have
suppose
to show an ID.
so. I suppose it's probably driver's license, passport, maybe a military ID, something like that.
Yeah, here there's DNI. It's just a national document. You're
Okay.
like, yeah, so it's just show them that, and
That's
they take care of
that's something
everything.
that's very interesting. Do the provinces issue driver's license and license plates, or does that all come from the central, like the central? Like, I mean, do you have a Cordoba license plate, or do you have an Argentina license plate? You know what I mean? Do you have a Cordoba driver's license, or do you have an Argentina driver's license?
I'm pretty sure it's just Argentina.
Okay.
I can't, because I'm in Buenos Aires, and like all of the driver's licenses I've seen are just all look the same.
Okay.
I can't really speak on that, but I'm
Yep.
pretty sure,
Yeah.
because everything seems to be so centralized here.
Yeah.
But as far as like license plates, like on a car, from what I've seen, they all look the same. Because in the United States, you might have like a Louisiana license plate, or something from
Yeah.
Montana might have like a cool little mountain on it. Here,
Oh
it's
yeah.
all the same. They all look the same. Like Europe, like whenever you see a license plate from Europe, you're like, that's cars from Europe.
Yeah.
That's not from around here. That's how it is here.
Yeah. Well, I just wondered, because the size of the country, it can vary,
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've got all this now. We went over the election, and now also Milei has, as you pointed out, the congressional makeup. He's got there's the Chamber of Deputies, which is generally the equivalent of the American House of Representatives, and then there's
Right.
the Senate, which is much like the American Senate, and there's going to be let's see, there's also, what's this Mercosur Parliament, they call it?
That's kind of like like a United Nations of South America, and I think there's only like 5 or 6 countries that are involved. I think it's like Uruguay, Argentina, Brazil, Bolivia, and Paraguay, something like that. I don't think it's like the whole entire continent, but it's, you know, one of these government within a government, you know. It's just more, just something else, I guess, to give government power.
And of course, looking at the final election, Massa only won 4 of the provinces.
Yeah, Milei won what, 19.
Yeah.
So if you look at the country, it's totally purple.
Massa did win Buenos Aires, but only by only by about 1.5%.
Yeah, it was almost a tie.
Although that was the biggest one, but yeah, and
when if you look at a map of Buenos Aires,
Chaco, Formosa, and Santiago del Estero, but they're much smaller provinces.
Well, yeah, and Santiago del Estero is where there was so much fraud in October. So that didn't surprise me. And then Formosa's ruled essentially by a dictator. That's an interesting area in itself. But yeah, he mopped the floor with Massa in just about the entire country. Yeah. And even in the places where Christina Kirchner's from, he did fantastic.
And you know, Buenos Aires, of course, you've got all those government workers voting. So that was almost a guaranteed loss for Milei.
Yeah, especially in La Plata. Well, that's the thing. If you see like a breakdown of Buenos Aires, it's less. Buenos Aires, Encaba, La Plata, La Matanza is an area that has, I think, the highest, most densely populated area in Buenos Aires, the province, and it usually always goes Juntos por el Cambio. Not Juntos por el Cambio.
Now going over the Chamber of Deputies, the Union por la Patria has that alliance, that coalition has 58 seats. La Libertad Avanza has 35 seats. Juntos por el Cambio has 31 seats, and then there's 6 other seats for a total of 130 seats. So you know, 35 out of 130 isn't horrible, but it's certainly not a majority. In fact, nobody really has a majority here.
Well, there's actually 257 seats in the Cámara de Diputados, so it's actually gigantic. As of the 10th of December, Frente de Todos, the leftists, will have 108 seats, which is 10 less than what they had before. So they lost 10 seats.
Yeah, Frente de Todos. That's or is that the workers left? Is that the workers left front?
No, that's Cristina Kirchner. Frente de Todos or Unión por la Plata or La Patria. They changed it from Frente de Todos to Unión por la Patria before the election. So they went from 118 to 108. So they lost 10. Juntos por el Cambio, which are like the Republicans or Macri's party, Bullrich's party, they went from 117 down to 94. So they lost 23 diputados or representatives. And then if you go to La Libertad Avanza, we went from 3, which was Villarruel, Milei, and Carolina Píparo, to gaining 35. So if you can imagine going from 3 to 35 in one election, it's just
is Píparo going to have any place in Milei's government or not?
A lot of people speculate that she was going to be given ANSES, which is like the Social Security organization here. However, it was decided, I guess, a week and a half ago that she would not be the person. And then it was actually given to someone else. Now, she might be placed somewhere else, but that's where most people were expecting her to go. And now that she's not there, she's kind of left without a spot. But I wouldn't doubt it if she finds her way somewhere, because she did run for governor of Buenos Aires and came in 3rd. And she's been pretty loyal to Milei. So I wouldn't doubt it if there is a spot for her somewhere. But the important thing about the diputados is that what's going to be tough for Milei trying to get things through Congress is that, so you have 108 with Frente de Todos or the Kirchneristas.
So apparently all these offices didn't turn over in this election is what you're telling me. Only some.
Yeah. Like you have Frente de Todos, the Kirchneristas lost 10, Juntos por el Cambio, the Bullrich people lost 23, and then La Libertad Avanza gained 35.
Yeah, they went 35,
and the Bregman people gained 1. So when you consider that we went from 3 to 35, that's immense. And with Juntos por el Cambio having 94 if Juntos por el Cambio and La Libertad Avanza can join forces, they'll have a majority in the Cámara de Diputados in the House in order to kind of hopefully push through things. The trouble is going to be in the Senate, where La Libertad Avanza went from having 0 senators to having 7, which is great. But there are 74, I think there are 74 seats, 72 seats in the Senate.
Okay.
So Unión por la Patria, the Kirchneristas, they gained 2 seats. Now they have 33 instead of 31.
Okay.
And so even with Juntos por el Cambio, who lost 6 seats, them with La Libertad Avanza won't put them at having as high a number of influence as the Kirchneristas in the Senate. So that it will be where you'll probably see a lot of debating and deal making going on in both houses, the lower and the upper, to be able to see what exactly you can push through. But Milei has also said that if Congress tries to stop him, he'll either rule by fiat or he'll put it up to like a national vote. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Well, it'll be interesting to see, if he maintains that popularity, and and apparently the Senate, since 24 seats in the Senate got turned over, we can assume that the Senate terms are 6 years.
Yes, that's right.
Okay, yes, because 24, that's 72, and you mentioned there were 130 seats turned over in the Chamber of Deputies, and that's out of 260 or something like that, or
254.
Okay, 254. Okay, so
yeah, for sure.
So it's about half. So they must be every 4 years. So that's interesting. So
yeah,
they don't all turn over. So the lower house is
257. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So what we're seeing here is the lower house is 4-year terms and half go on one cycle and half go on another, and then the Senate is 6-year terms, and you've got them staggered among the 6 years.
Yes.
Okay, so that's a little bit different. Yeah. Obviously, you've done some block walking for Ron Paul, and what is La Libertad Avanza doing correctly that obviously the American Libertarian Party or what is the Liberty Movement not doing that they need to do? What can the Liberty Movement in America learn from the Liberty Movement in Argentina?
Can I read you something that Rothbard wrote, and I think it pretty much it nails it on the head. And I think it's basically him predicting, in my opinion.
I certainly have my own. I certainly have my own opinions after all of the podcasts I've done. But yeah.
Well, this is a segment from an article that Rothbard wrote. He said, and so the proper strategy for the right wing must be what we call, quote, right wing populism, unquote.
Yeah.
Exciting, dynamic, tough, and confrontational, rousing and inspiring not only the exploited masses, but the often shell-shocked right-wing intellectual cadre as well. And in this era where the intellectual and the media elites are all establishment liberal conservatives, all in a deep sense one variety or another of social democrat, all bitterly hostile to a genuine right, we need a dynamic, charismatic leader who has the ability to short-circuit the media elites and to reach and rouse the masses directly. We need a leadership that can reach the masses and cut through the crippling and distorting hermeneutical fog spread by the media elites. And to me, that's exactly what Milei is and what the libertarians need to do. I really think that we have to not be ashamed of this left and right paradigm, but actually realize, okay, the left loves to call us right-wingers. The people who hate us love to call us right. Let's accept that. And let's begin to define, what does it mean to be right-winged? Was Hitler right-wing? No. Maybe in some of his stances, like he loved his country, he wanted to see this, but he's not right-wing when you consider how much government he wanted versus how much government people who are really right-wing libertarians want. And to just go on boldly forcing these ideas into the public discourse, to be bold and call these people parasites. I'm a person that believes that respect is earned. It's not just there's like a genuine respect you should have for an individual because they're another human being. However, the more you know about this person, especially if they're a piece of crap politician, that's exactly what they should be called. We shouldn't have any respect for these institutions that are that are held, or these offices that are held by people who are really horrible people. And we should be ferocious and unapologetically libertarian. I think that's one of the reasons why Ron Paul did so well, is because he was unapologetically libertarian, called out the Republicans, especially for what they were doing wrong, and obviously the Democrats.
Yeah.
And then you look at Milei, and he really did that here, but with a personality that's way more bombastic.
Well,
and
Well,
and
Ron
a lot
Paul,
of it's the cultural battle that he was waging before on TV and in articles and books that really led him to get to where he is.
here's some things I've noticed, though. You mentioned Fantino. I believe that was the guy. Alejandro Fantino was his first TV appearance, right? So I think, first of all, it looks like Milei, before he got into politics, got on a lot of these talk shows and kind of established his own brand. And politics is branding. You make yourself the brand of Milei.
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
I also think, I do think that the fact that Ron Paul, when he ran for president, was 20 years older, probably makes a difference. But Milei has got a cool factor that Ron Paul did not have.
No.
I think the fact that he was in a Rolling Stone cover band and also a soccer player has made him cool. I mean, Milei seems like a guy who back in high school would have been able to hang out with just about anybody, whether it was the punks, the jocks, the beautiful people, the maybe the goths. It seems like he would have had friends everywhere and been fine everywhere. And we definitely do not have that with a lot of our libertarians. Sure as hell, Rothbard didn't have it. I mean, I mean, Rothbard was an academic. He was a geek. I mean, he was a nerd, and he's a great nerd, great scholar. And we have a lot of great scholars, but these guys can't go out on the street and talk to people. And that's something Milei has. And I don't know who else in America would have it. Dave Smith to a certain degree, maybe Glenn Jacobs Kane, because he was a studio wrestler.
Oh yeah, I remember. Yeah.
I mean, because these guys, because he knew how to be a showman. Dave knows how to. Dave's a comedian. He knows how to be a showman. He knows how to read the room. He knows how to go out and in a way, really, Dave not running in 2024 gives him more time to build his brand, and he might be better in 2028 or 2032.
Especially if he can learn from what Milei's doing and see like, okay. I think I'm starting to figure out the formula, because Milei is more energetic, I guess, than Dave. And I think Dave Smith's fantastic. But Dave, I think it's going to take sincerity. I think like I said earlier, it's like I think we're entering a period where people are really craving something that's real. Which can be dangerous, because you can have a politician come across as sincere and totally burn everybody. But I think the whole veneer of politics is starting to just peel and fade, and people are wanting somebody who's like, okay, look, he might be crazy, but at least what he says, he believes. He's not lying straight to our face. He might be wrong, but he's not lying. And I think that's the kind of thing people are more interested in.
Well, I don't think Trump lied very much, but I think Trump had such a bad case of borderline personality disorder that the moment that he said something, he actually did mean it. But then 3 hours later, he might say something else and mean something and actually mean it at that point.
Right.
Also Spike. I mean, Spike has it. Spike has it. Spike comes up. Spike can be cool.
Spike Cohen.
Yeah. I also think if Dave wants to run for president in 2028. He ought to try running for something else first. See if he really wants to run for president. I mean, running for president is a big deal. Try something else before you run for president.
Well, I mean, because like Milei, he's a representative of the city of Buenos Aires, and then he ran for president. He didn't just come out of nowhere, and he was even critiqued for that by fellow libertarians who were saying like, no, you need to wait until 2027 because you haven't been in government very long. But his whole thing is like, I got to act now. But it would be nice to see somebody like Dave Rubin, not Dave Rubin,
Dave Smith,
Dave Smith, right? Forget Dave Rubin. Dave Smith, like run for Congress in New York, or I think he's still in New York.
I think he's in New Jersey now, or governor of New Jersey, or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, like
yeah, and
start
running for
there and
governor in
then
New Jersey wouldn't be that hard because it's such a small. It's such a small state. He wouldn't have to go that far away from home. Yeah,
no, no, not at all. And I'm sure people there probably have at least more of an idea of who he is than somebody
yeah.
like in Mississippi, for example.
Oh yeah,
But yeah, I mean, I would love to see people like him. I think that's another thing that this whole election has kind of turned my view of politics on its head to where
yeah,
being anarcho-capitalist for many years, I've kind of gone from the, well, voting doesn't really matter. If it really mattered, they wouldn't let you vote, this sort of thing. However, experiencing this, it's kind of like I'm back to that. Voting is an act of self-defense.
Oh
It's not a
yes,
great one. It's not a great one, but it's better than nothing. And
yeah.
if you can get enough
Yeah,
people, if you
yeah,
can get enough people that are willing to vote with you, you can use their system against them. Because look at what we've done. We've not only is Milei just a right wing, far right, ultra right, whatever you want to call him. He's an openly unabashed libertarian anarcho capitalist who's running as a minarchist, and he's been saying this over and over and
yeah,
over again. So this is a victory for liberty. I know there's a lot of people who are like, yeah, well, what about this? And what about this? And there's his view on
yeah,
Israel, which I do have my issues with Milei and his views on Israel and a couple of
yeah,
other things. But overall, we have to take this as a
yeah,
victory
yeah.
and as inspiration.
We can study and see what we can learn from the Israel thing. I didn't know about that until, and I remember watching that second debate with the 5 candidates, which was on the 8th of October, which was the day after the incident. If you remember,
Yeah.
4 of the candidates in that debate said something like, I stand with Israel. And the only one who mentioned the Palestinians, of course, was Bregman, the communist. And there's some factors here, number one. Number two, if all Milei hears is, if he only hears the communists defending the Palestinians, I can kind of understand why he wouldn't be sympathetic to the Palestinians.
Right.
And the other thing, too, is, I don't, Argentina and a lot of these countries don't have any substantial anti-war movements because they don't try to be empires. So there's no Argentine version of Scott Horton or Sheldon Richman or any of these other people who are doing all this great work. And as I've said before, I already know that people like Scott Horton are overworked and underpaid to begin with. But if Scott would translate one of his books into Spanish or have somebody else do it for him, we could give it to Milei. Or actually, Scott actually said the book that Sheldon Richman wrote about Palestine was the best one. But yeah.
Or even have an antiwar.com that's just Spanish.
Interesting enough, he's not part of the anti-war movement. Not strictly part of the anti-war movement, but I know Hornberger is fluent. Hornberger speaks Spanish. Maybe he could be the one to do it. Yeah,
in fact, maybe so.
Yeah,
I think ultimately,
yeah. But I also know usually when you have a translation done, it's better to have the translation done by a native speaker of the target language.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, but that's one I should. I'm going to send an email to Hornberger and say, hey, Jacob, here's a project for you. Translate Milei's books into English.
Get to work.
Yeah. Here you go. It'd be a way to make money. I don't know how that works out, the royalties, but do that and translate it because somebody's got to get those Milei books translated. The other thing too, Joram, I'm finding there's actually a there is a tradition of Spanish liberal thinking going back to the School of Salamanca of Economics.
Yes.
And some of these other people and apparently they influenced Jefferson too. It's been really wild to see this. I'm learning a lot. I wish I'd gotten fluent a long time ago. I'm sorry I didn't.
No, I understand. I'm kind of like that too. We always hear about the Austrian school, Chicago school, Keynesians. But it was a few months ago.
Public choice school also, the public choicers. Yeah.
Right. What was the super Marxist school? I can't remember.
I thought they were just Marxists, but oh well.
Yeah, maybe so. But I think there was the Frankfurt school, wasn't that one?
Oh yeah, well the Frankfurt school, that was Marxist, but that was more than just the Marxists. Yeah, that was they're more on social issues because they understand.
Yeah, it's not necessarily just economics. But
the Marxists realize they have to break down, and this is the thing too, Joram. I've gotten so interested in Latin America because I still see a country where I not being to Argentina, but being around Latin America, just seeing families still being taken seriously and stuff like that. I'm not very optimistic about America.
Well, and the size and the state it is, I'm not either. Like to me,
Yeah.
secession's the only way.
But I mean, I'm talking like, 50% divorce rates. I mean, in America, we're at a point now where, 20% of women or something are using some kind of psychoactive drugs. I mean, it's,
yeah, it's rough.
Men and women are so alienated from each other, and it's just not, it's not a happy situation here. And I don't know how I don't know how we get out of this. And I think Argentina has a lot of potential, and really, and as somebody said to me too, said, the rest of South America tends to follow Argentina. I don't know if that'll make a difference or not, but
I wouldn't doubt it, because I remember, maybe you've heard this before, but I remember being a kid and it was like, wherever California goes, the rest of the United States goes.
Yes,
that was like a saying all my life, that whatever California does, the rest of and it's kind of true. Like you look at like the more leftist or socialist they become, it's like eventually just creeps in, I guess, because of Hollywood and the influence of the media and what have you.
Yeah.
But I hope that's the case down here. I hope that's the case down here, because a lot of people in South America look at Argentina as being like very arrogant. Like there's a joke I heard a Mexican say, he's like, Argentinians, whenever they see lightning flash, they look up and smile because they think God's taking a picture of them. like that's how arrogant and full of themselves they are.
But jeez.
And you can see a little bit of that when you're here, but it's like when I was growing up in the United States, and especially in the South, there was like this sense of pride in your country, but not in like the government, but just like your community, your history, your heritage, and that they have that here.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that you're right. I hope that even though they might get looked at as the arrogant ones, that if they see like, oh my God, look how they're turning their country around. Let's get our stuff together.
I'm going to take a guess. I suppose Argentines like to tell jokes about Chileans, and Chileans like to tell jokes about Argentines, right? But
oh, I'm sure. I couldn't give you any. I can't think of any specifically, but I would bet my life on it.
Well, it's probably since they have such a long border, it's
well, and then there's contentious history, with Pinochet and the Allies, with the United States and England. So they've got their own little beefs with Chile.
But they're not going to have any war because they have these massive mountains in between.
Right. Yeah.
Mountains are very good at preventing war. They just
exactly. But there are areas in like Neuquén in which there are mountains, but there's a lot of valuable resources. So
but apparently also they like have boundary disputes over these little islands down in Tierra del Fuego. It's like, well, nobody wants to live there anyway,
Right. Well, I know, but Argentina considers Antarctica like another province.
Yeah. Well, also the Islas Malvinas. Yes. Also, don't forget the Islas Malvinas.
Oh, that's without a doubt. Yeah.
The Falklands. I mean, it's like,
That's like I have my libertarian view of those islands, that it's not even worth getting into a conversation with the average Argentinian, because I don't want to hurt their feelings. I don't want to come across. I'm like, okay, they're the Las Malvinas Argentinas. I'm with you. It's not worth getting into a big debate about those.
I just say we have a plebiscite with the Penguins and see what they like. Or
there you go.
Or see if you can teach the Penguins English, it'll be English. If you can teach the Penguins Spanish, it'll be Argentine. I don't know.
Well, did you see that like 91% of the people in Antarctica voted for Milei?
Oh, really? There are people in Antarctica?
There's like,
they actually live down there. Oh my goodness!
I think it's like researchers and stuff. So it may have been like 50 people. I don't know. I just remember seeing it. In fact, there was a libertarian group I'm in, and they were laughing. I was saying like, see, Argentinians' Nazi roots are still flaring up because of their.
Well, that makes sense. That makes sense because of the boat ride. That's another thing too. We were talking about Israel. Do maybe some of the people have some guilt about the fact that the country became a haven for Nazis? And maybe that's why they're sympathetic to Israel.
That's where my fear comes in, because if you go to these towns in Argentina that are very German, it's not like there's swastikas everywhere. I mean, it's like it looks like you're just how I would imagine being in like old Germany, like just beautiful buildings. There's so much wood everywhere. There's nothing anti-Semitic or pro-Nazi. Now maybe in some closet there's some rifle or there's some paraphernalia or something, but it's nothing you see out in the open. In fact, it's like the Germans that came here speak Argentinian. A lot of them speak German, but they identify as Argentinian.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that
But
there isn't a shame, but I do kind of get that feeling that there is a group of people here, or at least there's a number of Argentinians that feel like there's this worldwide black eye because of Perón and allowing the Nazi refugees to come here. There's a lot of people that believe Hitler actually came here and had a family and died here.
There were rumors about that.
Yeah, so I think there is a group of people that probably feel like they're tired of that stereotype, and so maybe they overcompensate by just adoring Israel instead of really just looking at Israel as just another corrupt government.
Adolf Eichmann was a big one. You know, Adolf Eichmann was a big one, and you know.
Well, if you go down to the south,
Joseph Mengele was a big one, and you know, Mengele was,
who made it here to Argentina?
Yeah,
and then Hitler, if he made it, that's a really big one.
Mossad was searching for Mengele. They actually they got Eichmann, but they never got Mengele. He died in 1979.
Oh, okay, wow.
Mengele was the medical experiment guy. He was a sick puppy.
Yeah.
I mean, he was, really, by some standards, maybe when you think about it, really maybe the worst of all of them. But there were a lot of guys. A lot of them.
And I think because of that, because of the harboring, because it's like when they came here, I might be completely, disconnected from this issue, but from what I see, from my perspective, there's not really like this anti-Semitic movement. If you go to places like Bariloche, which is like, a lot of people speak German, I don't really get any feeling that it's anti-Semitic or anything like that. But there is still this view here, especially that I'm seeing it popping up among the libertarians. It might be because of the influence of Javier Milei, but that Israel is like the United States in being like the two bastions of liberty in the world.
Yeah. Well, one thing I've learned about the foreign libertarians, when they look at America, they see the Declaration of Independence, they see the Constitution, they see Thomas Jefferson. We're Americans, and we realize just how screwed up America is.
We're more.
I would love to.
Cynical.
Milei went to New York, and I said, I'd love to show him. They removed the statue from the New York City Hall.
Yeah.
And also there is a parallel here. Israel Kirzner, who actually got his PhD under Mises, and he is still alive at the age of 93.
Wow.
By the way, I'd love to have him on here too, because he's got to have some great stories. But is also and was a longtime professor at NYU. He also is a rabbi. So he and Milei should definitely get together. I
would look forward to it.
Yeah, great economist. Always a
Well, there's so right.
I can't remember. There might be another one who got his PhD under Mises who's still alive, but.
Well, it kind of goes back to like we were talking about Scott Horton and these guys who have been working on foreign policy for so long, and they're so good. Nobody really knew who he was, generally speaking, until a few years after Ron Paul. He's really become big in the last 5 or 6 years, maybe a little bit more than that. So it's probably going to take a little more time for the libertarian movement here to be able to have these intellectuals or these thinkers, these people that kind of think outside the box and who are able to really refine the ideology. We're not quite there yet here, but there are some people here who are stellar. But when it comes to foreign policy and really understanding, like, why is Ukraine the way it is? Why is Israel the way it is? Why are libertarians in the United States so I don't know, what would you say, distrusting of foreign governments, especially in the Middle East. I think we'll get to that point here, but because it's so new and because Milei does seem to be either transitioning into Judaism, or at least has a very, very soft spot in his heart for Judaism, a lot of people are kind of giving Israel a pass. And then, of course, when you see how evil Hamas is and
Oh
what they
yeah.
do, it makes it even easier to just kind of
Yeah.
overlook the
Oh yeah.
crap that
Yeah.
Israel does.
I don't disagree that a lot of these, most of the regimes in the Middle East are absolutely horrible.
Yeah. Well, it's just a bunch of like ethnic blood feuds that just don't ever seem to end.
Yeah, it's kind of, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what happened in the Middle East, because, this region that gave us, great mathematicians, and, the word algebra has Arabic origins. I just don't.
Yeah. Alcohol.
It's funny how things rise and fall like that. And, it's a very interesting time. I don't know when. I'm trying to, look up. I think it's probably been 100 years since. Well, okay, you had the little war over the Falklands, but I mean, I think it's probably been about 100 years since there's been any kind of war in South America.
Yeah, if you cut out like Che Guevara and all the guerrilla wars and stuff,
Revolutionary activity, yes, revolution, yeah,
but like country versus country,
civil wars, revolutionary activity, occasional fights between the descendants of Europeans and the people in the rainforest, or the people who used to be Incas. Yeah, there's definitely. Right. Oh yeah, there's and even.
But as far as country versus country, during the Falklands,
there hasn't.
Yeah. There was some, like Chile was kind of invading parts of Argentina during that time.
Oh, okay.
Because so while Argentina was trying to battle England, Chile was kind of coming through the back door. But other than that, there really wasn't. There really isn't too much like international war, I guess.
Yeah. Well, Venezuela might try to pick a fight with Guyana, but yeah, that's which I think could probably end up. Which hopefully would be the downfall of that regime, but
I was going to say, how can they pay for a war?
Oh yeah, and that's another regime too. I mean, sometimes when the U.S. does, the U.S. government does say Maduro is evil. Well, yeah, Maduro is evil. He's really evil.
Did you hear what he said about Milei?
He it probably wasn't very positive.
Yeah, he was basically saying, they elected this far right leader, blah blah blah. Yeah. Well, about a year ago, the Kirchneristas had invited him to come and visit for something I can't remember. But Patricia Bullrich actually said, "Look, if he enters Argentina, I want to arrest him for human rights violations." And she asked for help international to actually carry this out. I think she actually asked for help from the United States or something like this to reinforce her. And so he backed out. He didn't come. So I think that's another part of it, is that he sees Argentina, especially now that Milei has won, as being like the antithesis to his communist socialist regime, which he seems like an idiot. I'm sure there's people above him that are kind of controlling him, kind of like a Biden type thing. But yeah, it makes me wonder, how long can that sustain? I feel so bad for the Venezuelans, There's a lot of people here that are from Venezuela who are vote for Milei, so it doesn't become like the country I left.
And I just also wonder too if seeing what's happened with Venezuela has influenced the rest of South America, because people, because all these people in all these countries can read their newspapers and read each other's newspapers and read and listen to each other's TV stations. It's so that would definitely
one of the big things here with
Venezuelans need to import baseball to Argentina. That's one project. I want Venezuelans to turn Argentina into a baseball country. But yes,
Venezuelans play baseball.
Oh yeah, they play baseball definitely.
Okay.
Quite a few great baseball players in Venezuela and Colombia. Yeah.
Oh, okay. They people play baseball here, but it's there might be 10 in the whole country. I'm exaggerating, but it's pretty. I mean, it's obviously soccer, basketball actually is fairly popular, but baseball you don't really hear too much about that.
Yeah, soccer. Yeah, well, I know they love Messi down there. Yeah, so it's a
right. Well, one of the things that they were trying to, I should say, I guess us, La Libertad Avanza Milei ran a very clean, honest, and from my opinion, hopeful, positive. They didn't really go the whole attack campaign route. They kind of let Massa do that. But those of us on the ground and Twitter, and the YouTube, what have you, were likening Massa to Maduro, being like, if we vote for if we get Massa, we're going to be Argenzuela. So I'm sure it's kind of insulting to the Venezuelans. But I think our Venezuela and how it went from being a very rich country to now a total extremely poor country.
Oh yeah.
There's a lot of Argentinians that have looked at Venezuela as a model that Argentina would eventually get to, just over a slower period of time. But now that Milei's elected, it's like, okay, maybe we just avoided, because with Massa that would have happened. Like if Massa's president, 140% inflation would have just kept going up and up and up and up and up.
Yeah, and that's another thing too, though. I've heard that Castro started funding these agitators in other countries back in the 70s, and I'm hearing that's still happening. So that some of the protesters might be getting paid off, by Maduro or somebody from Castro. Yeah. But anyway, this has been a great conversation. I don't think there's anything else left to say at this point.
It has been.
I think
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's been great having you. Yeah. We might have had some bandwidth issues. That's why I took out the video, but it's been a great show. Yeah. And this is such an optimistic time to be alive. And I got to thank Olga, because, I remember you were on that show with her months ago, and even before the election, I said, yeah, this sounds interesting. And Milei has, he's almost went from 1 million to 2 million Twitter followers now too. It's really,
he's exploding.
And, maybe this, and I was saying, maybe this is the most important election in the history of the world.
As of right now, I think so.
I mean, this could really, I sometimes call it the democratic and capitalist version of the Bolshevik Revolution. I mean, maybe this will turn it all back and change everything. I don't know if it will, but
that's the thing. Yeah. You just, for these type of things, for good and bad things to happen, you just need enough people. And if that's what we can focus on, we don't have to convert everybody. We don't have to go out and be like, religious nutbags. But all we have to do is try to be ourselves, put forth the libertarian message, just relentlessly, unrelenting, and just really be there to push it forward, and hopefully get to the point where we just have enough people. We don't need everybody. We just need just enough. And so I'm hoping, just like the Bolshevik Revolution started with a tiny group of people, the Nazis started out as a really small, tiny group of people. But now we're starting out with a pretty small, tiny group of libertarians. But the Nazis are vilified, and the Bolsheviks haven't been vilified yet. Maybe they will be after this. Maybe academics will clean up their act too and be a little more fair.
Really hard to say. It could be a good time for the world, and maybe all of the maybe in a way the whole coronavirus nonsense might end up being a blessing in disguise.
I think the more that they show their hand, the powers that be, the statists, the governments, the more that the average person doesn't really have much of a choice but to say, like, what the heck?
And I like bringing people on here for interviews. I don't think anybody wants to hear me ramble for 2 hours. It's better to have a couple people on. So
you've been doing a great job. Your
thanks,
interviews have been very interesting.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I shouldn't be I don't want to brag too much, but
go for it, man. You've put in a lot. There's been 50 episodes, or more than 50 episodes since the last time I was on.
There haven't been. Yeah, I did 25 shows in September. It was nuts.
That's a lot.
I'd never done that many shows. And like I said, Joram, people are excited to talk about this. I almost never.
Yeah, but you're working your tail off.
Come
man.
on, I'd love to talk about it. It's been a lot. And, the other thing too about Milei is he's actually changing people's minds. He's making them free marketers, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Nothing left to say. I don't know if there's any places you love in Argentina that we should go visit or anything, but we'll see.
Right.
Well, I'm thinking a lot about making it down there though.
Oh, well, there's a bunch of places that I could tell you to go. If you come to Buenos Aires, I could show you some places, but then there's places around the country that are beautiful that I think you'd really enjoy.
I want to go see the penguins if I get down there. Yeah. So.
Oh, yeah. Well, bring some warm clothes.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, that's the. If you watch Monty Python's Flying Circus, there's this little video of the penguins marching, marching like holding up signs. That maybe make a shirt with the penguins, and then they're holding up a Milei sign, so they're penguins support Milei. You know,
right?
hey,
it's funny because the Kirchneristas were often referred to as the penguins because they come from down south.
You know, this is something else too that I realize about the liberty movement in America versus here. Milei has the lion. We have the porcupine.
Yeah.
Maybe we should drop the porcupine and pick up the lion.
Or go back to the snake, the don't tread on me, because here they love the don't tread on me snake.
Yeah.
They love it here.
The
porcupine, I understand it. It makes a lot of sense, but it's just like it's a porcupine.
The snake, you know, goes back, I think, to the Benjamin Franklin made an editorial cartoon, and he had a picture of a snake chopped up, and every piece was representing a colony.
Join or die.
And it said "join or die," and I think that's where the snake from. Then the Culpeper Minutemen adopted it, and that's when the "Don't tread on me" came from, or sometimes it was also "Don't tread upon me." Either one, that really took off. It was the snake, snakes, lions. You know, the Russian libertarians use an eagle. You know.
Oh, that's cool. I take that.
They have an eagle. Eagle is an eagle has that. You know, like the eagle is the. You know, if the lion is the king of the jungle, the eagle is the king of the birds. You know,
right? Yeah, exactly. Well, it's funny because the Chinese libertarian that my friend. Maybe the libertarian logo is a dragon, which could it be any better than that?
That's definitely Chinese though. Yeah, I can see that. They love dragons. They love dragons. You know, dragons are such. Well, up until 1912, the Chinese flag had a dragon on it. So the dragon has always been a symbol of a symbol of China. So good for them. Yeah, it's a. Well, I don't know if there's anything else you want to say, but it's been great having you on here. I can may go back and there's still a few people I want to talk about this, but it's great having you on here, and I've been enjoying this so much. It's really made podcasting fun.
I thank you, Chris, for having me on here. If I could put in a plug really quickly.
Yes, he's got stuff on Zazzle. Yes,
that's it. If you go to Zazzle and you type in Javier Milei, you'll probably find my store, which is Liberty Mode. So if you want a really cool shirt, in fact, Scott from the Free State Project bought one of them, and it looks awesome. I was really impressed with the way it looks. But anyway, thank you so much, Chris, for this experience.
Scott's awesome. I've had so many great people. You know, Axel Kaiser.
Yeah, Scott's great.
Jorge Trucco. I mean, there've been so many great people out there. It's great. This is a very exciting year, and maybe we thought it was dead after the Berlin Wall fell. Maybe it will be dead this time. Goodbye, socialism.
Exactly.
Anyway, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, check out my Substack, go buy my novel Escape from the Village. Chris Baker for the Fountainhead Forum 137. We are out.